If you want to change the fork springs on your VStrom 800DE, I'm going to show you how to do that. It's very, very straightforward. The other thing I wanted to show you is that you don't actually need any special tools. So when you look in the manual, there's all these little bits and bobs that you use to pull these apart. But I've successfully done one fork leg with nothing special except for one of these little things which I've got from the local hardware store. It's basically got two hooks on either end and a piece of rubber in the middle. It doesn't need to be a bit of rubber. You could even use like a really stiff piece of wire, a ratchet strap, a piece of 8mm hose. That's way too long, but a piece of 8mm hose, and a syringe. This is one that I use for brake fluid, sucking brake fluid out of motorbikes and cars and that sort of stuff. And all I've done is I've just put a cable tie here. You might be able to see that little cable tie here, just so that I can measure my 200mm for the fork oil height. And while I'm talking about it, while we're talking about tools, this here is a little cable tie cutter. So if ever you use cable ties on cars, motorbikes or whatever, you'll find that you invariably, you never get a good cut on these cable ties, and you end up, next time you stick your hand in there, you slice yourself open. Get yourself a pair of these. They're really, really nice to use, and they make you feel like a pro. So anyway, let's get into popping this top off this thing. Now, I'm assuming you know how to do all this part, because if you don't know how to do all this part, you probably should be paying someone, right? All I've done is I've cracked the top of this, so undone that so that I can undo it properly on the bench. But basically, while it's still in the bike with the clamp on it, all I've done is I've just cracked the top nut of this. I'm going to give it a clean because when you cycle the fork, there's all this crap that builds up down the bottom here where the fork doesn't normally travel. So you just want to make sure all this surface is really clean, because you don't want to be pumping that up and down through the fork seal. Otherwise, you'll be pulling them out a little while to replace your fork seals. So I'll give this a clean, I'll reset the camera, and then I'll show you how to get this thing out. Right, let's crack on. Okay, the fork leg's all nice and clean. I've given it a wipe down. I use glass cleaner, that's because that's just what I had, but you could probably use anything as long as you mainly get this surface here clean, because you don't want to, like I say, damage the seals before. So the next thing is to pop this cap off. Now you remember I've already undone that bit. What I did do was I cut a small piece of cloth like that, just because I don't want to, you know, damage up the nice anodizing. It's kind of copped a little bit of damage already from me, but anyway, that's the way it is. So this will be pretty easy to pop off. So we'll just undo that until I can get it hand tight. There we go. Actually might put a bit of cloth underneath that. There we go. Right, so that's off. Right, now here's where the magic happens. So this is obviously full of oil. We'll drain the oil out in a little while. But what you need to do is, you can see that hole there, there's one on the other side. So what you need to do is pull that down against the spring like that, so you can get these nuts undone. So this is where we get to use our special tools. And I'll just go and grab them because I've just left them sitting over the other side of the bike. So one moment please. So the next thing is, now that I've got my bits here, is this double hook thing. Like I say, you could use like a really stiff bit of wire. You do have to just pull this down against the spring weight, the spring, so you want it to be strong enough that it's not going to bend and then pop out and cause you some trouble, maybe lose a finger. So that just hooks in either side of those holes. And then the next thing I'll do is take my ratchet strap. I've just got two loose straps in there rather than the hook bit, just so I can tie a knot around there. So all I'll do is I'll just tie the ratchet strap through here and then hook it into this. So I'll just get that done now. Right, so I'll just hook that in like that. Should be able to see that. Actually, I'll spin that around so it's hooked the other way. Hook it in like that. Then I'll just start ratcheting. Bring that down. And you can see that's pulling that down. It's just pulling against the spring. And now I've got plenty of clearance to undo the rod, the lock nut, and that is a 17 and a 14. So just hold that between my knees here, like that. Just crack that. It's not tight at all, so all I need to do is loosen that off, and this should just unscrew. Oh, a little bit of help there. Here we go. Right, this has got quite a long damper rod on it, so just be prepared for that. Come on. Ooh, so I'm doing the damper rod. There we go. It's just a little bit stuck. I'll just nip that back up. Right. That's it. That's the hard part done. So now all we need to do is release the ratchet strap. Take that, which I'll do now. And I'll just hang on to that to make sure it doesn't pop and fly anywhere. There we go. Pull it out. Pull it out. Right. That's a damper rod. What's that called? You've got this spacer, you've got a seal there, don't lose those, make sure you keep them clean. And now we're ready to drain. So I've got an oil pan down here. I won't show you how to do that. Actually, maybe I will. Rightio. So, be prepared when you tip this in. So I've still got the ratchet strap hanging off that. You could undo that to get out of the way, but that's okay. So I'm just going to put my hands over the end just to catch the spring. There we go. And all the oil's coming out. Perfect. And just don't forget the damper rod's still poking in there, so we'll lean it up against that. Hopefully it won't roll away. You can pull over my shed forward a little more. Right. So what we need to do now is to cycle the damper rod a few times, and we also need to cycle this a few times. Now, the idea of this, of course, is to pump whatever oil is in there out, so that when you're filling it up with oil, you're filling it up with fresh oil. That all sounds like it's just air now. But what I'm going to do, just to be sure, is I'm just going to leave that in here, lean it up against this for a while, against the toolbox, and I'll just make sure it's fully drained. And in the meantime, I'll get this spring out of the way. So that's it. Assembly is really just filling up the oil at the right level and putting it back together. So that's the tricky part, that they're saying that you need the special tool. But also when we drop the spring back in, there is another special tool they say you should have so that you can keep hold of the damper rod. But that's where my piece of hose comes in. So I'll get all this straightened out, give that a few minutes to drain, get rid of this, get my new spring ready to put in there, and then we'll put it back together, just like that. So just so you can see, as I was unscrewing it, it started basically winding the damper rod down. So this would eventually unscrew and come all the way out the bottom. So all I've done is just screw that back in. So when you're pulling it out, just try to pop it out. And I think that's part of the reason one of those special tools, it's like a little wedge thing that you slide in here and then it sort of just goes boop and pops it. But just I gave it a good tug and away it went. Now, obviously, when I refit this, I'm going to wind this all the way down because the damping settings will be based on, I think it's so many turns out. So anyway, that's all right. I can put it in just like that. That's fine. So anyway, let's get ready. So back to our fork leg, which has been draining for a couple of minutes. Give it a clean. floor. Here's my bit of rag. Right, so now it's time to top up the oil. I've already put some in there. I'm just going to work this damper in there. Work it up and down. I can see it's pumping oil at the top and there's still some air bubbles coming out of it. Right, let's not make any noise. So we'll move the fork leg up and down. It's not going to matter. Right, so I think I need to tip a little bit more oil in there, so we'll just do that because that's sucked it up into the damping system, whatever that is. Right, here's where my next super duper tool comes in. Syringe. So all I've done is I've got that piece of hose on there just to extend it a bit longer. I've got that measured out at 200 millimeters. This bend will sort of shorten it up a bit, but whatever. So all I do is I just put the fork vertical, pull it in there till my cable ties lined up, start sucking all that. Right, that's it. Simple as that. So that's now measured at 200 mils. You can do that a couple of times if you want to check it, but I'm not going to because there could be a little bit of, because I use this for all sorts of stuff, so I'm a bit worried about residual brake fluid or moisture or whatever. So next we get to this. So all you do, grab the damper rod, shove this on there. And it needs to go on a few turns, and then you can let that drop back in. Right, now, here's my new spring. So I did make this a little bit too long, but anyway, better long than shorter, I guess. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to shove this up through here eventually. You probably could actually drop the spring and then pull the damper rod through and then put the bit of hose on, because it's the next bit you really want it for. Not so much this bit, I think. Come on. Right. Spring goes in. That's it. And then, look at the magic. Okay. So, it's going to drain back down a bit, and the next bit is this tube, so I'll then slide that on. And this is the most important part of it. Hope you can see that. Basically I'm pulling it up, and now I just need my bizzo to, my special other tool to strap this back down and pull it back down. So we'll do that now. Now you will note that it sucked a bit of fluid up in here, so I'll just be careful. Once I pop that hose off, I'll just make sure the fluid runs back into the fork so I don't lose any fork oil, but otherwise we should be okay. Oops, put it around the right way, and here we go. That should be plenty. Right, so I might even blow that down. Look at that. Right. So we are ready for spacer. I might give that a quick wipe with my rag. spacer, which sits on top of there, and then a damping rod. Slot that in. Now, it's quite important that you make sure that does screw down so that it does lock up against the lock nut. So now we get our 2 spanners. 17 at the top. 14. Oh, you just nip that. I don't believe you need to do it super hard. Right, so that's all ready to go now. So basically all I need to do is get all this oil off my hands. All I need to do is pop this ratchet strap, screw the lid, and as I say, Bob's your uncle. Right, that is now ready to go back in the bike. I'll give it a wipe down. I'll screw this in a bit further, but I won't nip it up. I'll do it in the bike. But basically, that's it. So I hope this helps. You know, you could buy those tools, absolutely. I don't know how much they are. They could be cheap. But for me, I rarely do this job. So it's not worth me spending the money on a tool that probably will only fit this bike or this type of suspension, and next time I do it I'll have to buy something else. So if I can find a workaround, I will, and we'll be good. So hope that helps you. Wasn't particularly hard. This bit was, once I worked out a way to get this undone, then it worked pretty well. So I'm pretty happy. Anyway, I hope you guys like it, and if you will like the video, I don't really care if you like and subscribe, because I don't make that many videos and it doesn't really matter to me. So I'm just doing this for information. So anyway, enjoy the rest of your day and ride safe.